everyone, how's it going? Lloyd Carter here from Wing Magma. Welcome to episode 4 of the Wing Magma podcast, where we discuss all things Wing Magma and also the Wednesday Wang playlist that I'm curating over on Spotify. If you are a fan of this sort of thing, please do come and follow me on Instagram at Wing Magma, TikTok at Wing Magma, YouTube at Wing Magma, and you can also search for the Wing Magma podcast on Spotify and Buzzsprout, and you should be able to find me and get involved. So, what has been going on this week in the wonderful world of Wing Magma? Well, mainly, my guitar came back from the Luthia. I still haven't figured out if that's the right word or not, but the guy that set the intonation on my guitar, it came back, and I don't feel like it should be that big a deal, but it really was. And like having my guitar back and it feeling really fresh, I don't know, it's odd. It just felt really nice, and like I've had a lot of fun playing it. Like I've just been playing for playing's sake, and you know I set my pedal board up as well, so I'm considering getting a new pedal board. So I was recommended a pedal planning board app from Gavin Thorpe. He currently plays in Rich List, I think his name is. The name of the band is Rich List. He used to play guitar in Minars, and I got messaging him over Instagram, and because I know that he knows his stuff about pedals and pedal boards, so I was asking his advice on a few things, and he mentioned this pedal board planning app, and I was able to kind of plan my board out, and now I reset up my board, and it's sounding really, really clean, sounding really great, plus my guitar sounds ace. So I've had a lot of fun over the past week just playing, and it seems like every time I pick up my guitar something interesting happens. So just, yeah, really, really enjoying playing. In terms of the songs that I've got going on with Wing Magma, I've been going round in circles on a few different things. I think I've kind of, if you've been listening to the podcast, I've mentioned it before now, that I'm not entirely sure about, not so much where I'm going, but what I've done in between Memory Holes and now. So I have another song called These Wires, and it's recorded and it's ready to go, and I'm kind of waiting, or I was waiting for it for another release, rather than just putting out another single on its own. I was going to put a full like EP out or something, and I've been sat on this track for a couple of months now, and I hadn't listened to it, and I listened to it not very long ago, and I'm just not sure about it. Now, I've wrestled with my own music for years, and there's a strong argument that I'm way too self-critical. So I'm aware of that, and I'm aware that I need to get past that and just put my stuff out there. However, there's just something about this track that I'm not happy to put myself into. I don't know, it's and I think what it comes down to, and I don't want to appear ungrateful when I say this, because I've had a great time working with Dave Tidmarsh. I just don't know if our styles suit each other. I've messaged Dave, and I've hopefully I certainly don't want to burn any bridges there, because he's a fantastic guy, he's a fantastic producer, but I just think what kind of solidified it to me, like he had some music on his Instagram that he's working on at the moment, whether it's actually his or if it's a band that he's producing, but it sounded immaculate. and it was really heavy, and there was some screaming on it, and it just sounded so immaculately produced, which is fantastic for the right genre and the right style if that's what you're after. Now, the track that he's done for me is immaculate, and I don't think it suits me, and it just sounds so polished, so clean. It makes me feel a little uncomfortable, I think, is what it boils down to. And I mean no offense to Dave if you're listening. I really appreciate what he did, not just in terms of producing Memory Holes, but actually helping me to get over myself and get it out there. And I'll always be grateful for that. But there's something not right about this other track in terms of it's well produced, it's incredibly well mixed. I know he put a lot of effort into that, but like I say, it doesn't feel like me, and I'm 90% certain that I'm not going to put that track out because I don't feel comfortable with it. I may share it. I've shared it with a few people, and people have said nice things about it, but I don't know. It's like Memory Holes I'm really proud of, and I'm happy to put that out as a representation of my songwriting, and I don't feel the same way about this other track, which has made me reconsider not just the music that I'm writing, but how I go about recording it. And some of the music that I've been listening to this week will probably echo what I'm about to say in terms of I feel like I am rough around the edges, and I just prefer recordings that capture something, capture an energy, a mood, an atmosphere. I'm not one for having everything completely perfect in order for it to be deemed a success or finished. So I think that's where my head is. I've just got to kind of, for Wing Magma, it's got to be a representation of who I am, what I do, and how I imagine it to sound. So I've kind of got to go back to the drawing board. But equally, like, I don't think, like, ultimately it should just be a fun, enjoyable expression of my music. That can't be too difficult, really, surely. Who knows? So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of the Wing Magma music. I had an idea this week. So I've a couple of friends of mine. Sorry, if you can hear some clicking, I'm turning on the radiator. It's really cold in my garage. A couple of friends of mine, a while back, we had an idea about starting a podcast because we like to talk to each other, and it was we met up on a Zoom call or something like that, just to chat about albums that we liked. I think the idea was good. It was a bit rudderless, and there was no kind of structure to the conversation or anything like that. It was just a bit of a round table talk, and I'd like to do that as part of as a new kind of avenue for the Wing Magma podcast. So I'll be doing the Wing Magma podcast as it currently is, with interviews and stuff like that when I've got people to interview and when something's coming out. But as a side channel to this, I'd like to do, in my mind, I've got a name in my head, and it's only going to be funny or relevant if you know the Ferrero Rocher adverts from the 90s. So I want to call it Wing Magma Exquisite Taste. And now that I've said that out loud, I'll see how I feel about it once I've put this out. But I wanted it to be Wing Magma's Exquisite Taste, where I talk about certain... I'm not sure if I can do that. Perhaps I might have to cut that out. I don't know. Whatever I call the podcast, or whatever I call that episode of the podcast, it was just an idea to get a friend or a group of friends on a call and talk about albums that we love and just discussing music with friends. As a bit of an extension to what I did last week, talking to James, Shyness. I mean, the interview that I put out was predominantly about his music and his release, because I was, in order to kind of promote what he's got coming out. But we spent a lot of time just talking about the music scene that we were both involved in, bands that we like, and it was just a really nice conversation. So I think to do that with a group of friends, all centered around important albums, either that I like or that my friends want to discuss, I think that would be an interesting thing to listen to. So I've got a couple of ideas for albums that I would like to pilot that idea with. I've not approached anybody yet, but I think in the next few weeks I'll probably start doing that. And the other thing that I've got going on is that I'm moving house. So I'm going to be moving house. I'll probably do another episode of the podcast in this garage, and then that might be the last one that I do, and then I'll be in the new gaff by that point. So hopefully there won't be any disruption and I'll have the internet all sorted out and stuff like that. But quite excited about moving. I'm gonna have a larger studio / office / rehearsal room than I currently have, so I'm extremely excited about that, and fully intend on putting it to good use from the day that I get in there. So yeah, I think that is about it for Wing Magma. So now we'll go over to the Wednesday Wang part of the show. Okay guys, so not a particularly massive playlist again this week, and I'll tell you for why. Because I've largely been listening to full albums of a handful of bands, rather than lots of single tracks and stuff like that. So rather than put those full albums up, I've just taken a couple of tracks from said albums to share with you. Now, the first track is Memory Holes. Perhaps I should have done this the whole time to try and encourage listens to Memory Holes, because essentially that was the whole point of A, the podcast, and B, the playlist, was to kind of drive traffic towards Memory Holes. But I never felt, I don't know, I think because it's the first track, it's easier to skip, I guess. But I always remember Queen had this thing that whenever they were on a compilation, they put that they had their track was the first track on any compilation that they were on, and I always thought that was quite a cool thing to have written into your contracts if you appear on compilations. And since I'm the curator of this, I can put that track wherever I want. Hopefully it's in a place where people will listen to it rather than skip it, but whatever guys, we're all friends here. You can skip it. Actually no, you can't skip it. That's the rule. I'm not gonna, if I let you guys skip it, you'll skip it forever. So the first real track of the playlist, Squid, right? So again, with the the Instagram adverts. So Squid came up. I think Instagram have got me pegged because, like, I think they know what I like and they're just pointing music at me. I quite like this. It's called Narrator. They sound very, very much like early Foals kind of stuff. So when Foals, like before Antidotes, so around when they were kind of a small aspiring band, I think of them, and I'm probably wrong because I don't know that scene particularly well, but I always think of those as like pioneers for a whole wave of bands that kind of, well, really, I guess the first track in the genre that I'm trying to describe would be House of Jealous Lovers by The Rapture, which was like, right, a guitar band format can play music that you would quite happily hear in a club, or people would dance to it without being ironic. It was like dance music made by bands, and Foals, like I said, when they first started out, I would very much say that they were that kind of a band. They were writing that kind of a music, and it was very tight guitar riffs, big beats, but that's certainly what Squid are doing. But I would say that there was a bit more of a visceral vocal on this. So yeah, I quite liked it. It's I was going to say 10 years too late, but it's probably 15 years behind the time in that respect, but doesn't make it any less good, I guess. I really enjoyed it. See what you guys think. So then I was listening to, I don't know if it was a Release Radar. It might have been a Release Radar, and I was kind of skipping through it. There's another track that I heard which I've completely lost, and I'll try and find it because I enjoyed it. It was like a glitchy, it was predominantly played, it was bass, so it was like a solo bass player, but it had all of this glitchy backing to it, I guess. But I'll try and find it. I thought it was quite interesting. But so the next couple of tracks came from me listening to this Release Radar when I was walking the dogs one day. So Wave Shaper, The Disc Hunter, is another synthwave track. The thing for me about synthwave, and it might just be that I'm a tourist of this genre, they all sound extremely similar, but they're all so fun. Like, I enjoy most synthwave tracks that I listen to, because I don't know, there's a guy that I used to work with called Jack Biddlecombe, and he listened to predominantly punk and pop punk, and I was always surprised that, like, he would listen to hundreds and hundreds of bands that for me were all just kind of similar. They were all kind of doing the same thing, but because they were doing the same thing and it was different for each band, there were subtle differences. Perhaps that's the similar kind of thing with synthwave. But again, like every synthwave track that I hear, it reminds me of playing 80s computer games. So it takes me to that kind of a place. It's all good for me. Part Chimp. This came out. I didn't realise it was Part Chimp until it kicked in, and then I was like, right, who is this? So yeah, I'm a big fan of Part Chimp. Really like the Thriller album, and Cheap Thriller as well. So this is very much of that ilk. Starts off very quiet, then just everything comes to blister your face off really, like, if you're not awake by the time you listen to this, you really will be afterwards. Okay, so then I've got a couple of bands that came up in conversation with Neil Humphreys again. So me and Neil have been messaging each other quite a bit off the back of the past podcasts that I've done, and he's been firing a few different albums at me. So No Kill, No Beep Beep by Q and Not You. So Q and Not You, I remember influencing a lot of people that were in bands, you know, when public relations exercise were a thing. That it was a band that got mentioned a lot. I never really got into them, and I never heard this album, but Neil was saying that this was a game changer, and I can see why. There is an energy and a rawness to this album that you can hear threaded throughout a lot of bands that I used to admire and, you know, quite often play shows with from back in the day. So I've put a couple of tracks here. I think these are the first two tracks on that album. I went for a run on Sunday and I listened to this album and Faux Pas, Future Old People Are Wizards. I kind of had those two albums back to back, and it was quite intense by towards the end of Faux Pas. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone. But yeah, so at this Q and Not You, I don't really know why I didn't switch on to them back in the day. I've got a feeling it might be the singer. And I'm frustrated with myself because it can be something as simple as, depending on which way the wind's blowing, if I don't like the sound of something, I'll just switch off and move on. But this is a really great album, and one that I'm gonna, you know, give a lot of time to. I've listened to it a couple of times since it was recommended to me. And I just get the feeling that this is, when Neil said it was a game changer, I get it. I get what he means by that. There are a few albums that I feel like this would sit. Had I had heard it at the time, this would have sat with Crimes by Blood Brothers for me in terms of albums that kind of shifted what I was listening to into a direction that I ended up being quite passionate about, and it fell into the music that I was writing. And before that, I'd say Relationship of Command Out the Driving, similar kind of thing in terms of whatever I was listening to before that, and whatever was influencing me before that just took a sudden 90-degree turn. I imagine that this album could have been one of those albums had I listened to it back in the day. So start listening to it now, see where it takes me. So yeah, so then Future Old People Are Wizards. So this is another recommendation from James Collins. Really dig this album. I think that I'm pretty sure they're a 3-piece, and it's like drums, guitar and synths, and it sounds huge. The guitars are heavy and really biblically epic in places, and the synths just add this layer of depth and colour to what they do. Really interesting stuff, and I'm going to really enjoy exploring more of those guys. Great shout by James, so thank you very much, James. If you're listening, thank you, because I think there's a lot more to be found there. So another band that came up in conversation with Neil was, I want to say, Farraket. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it, but Cut Self Not was a track. So I've gone through like some of my old playlists that I put together when I first got Spotify. I started getting into a habit of whatever I was listening to that month, I'd make a playlist of. And it was, I was listening to Farraket, No, 7 years ago? Have I had Spotify that long? 2014. Yeah. Jesus. That's crazy. The years are just tumbling on, yo. But yeah, so I'm back then. I, you know, as you go down kind of Spotify rabbit holes, and this was a band that I listened to, and hadn't really returned to, and I think it's a bit of a sad consequence of having access to so much music, is you don't live with your music anymore. You rent it, and it can be quite throwaway. So I listened to this album a lot for 1 month 7 years ago, and then forgot about it. And Neil Syke sent me a message, and so I said, "Have you heard these guys? I think you'll like them." And just, I remember Cut Self Not being a track that I listened to a lot back then. If anybody knows me as a guitar player, I wouldn't say that this is what I sound like, but this is certainly what I aspired to sound like, definitely. And there may have been times where I got slightly close to it, but it sounds familiar to me, and I think that's probably why I liked it way back. Well, I say way back when, 7 years ago. Okay, so then talking about myself some more. I've been listening to this track a bit this week, and there's another PRE track that I've been listening to as well, but I don't want to chuck all of. I'll save it for another playlist. Chair Made of Human Skeleton was the last song we recorded together in Public Relations Exercise, and it was a B-side for the Catalyst single. And this is what we were promoting when we were touring with And So I Watch You From Afar. I really like this song. It was probably my favourite representation of our abilities to write songs in Public Relations Exercise. So for anyone that knows that band or knew that band, we were kind of very passionate, very energetic, but we were falling into traps, and we were falling into traps of, I think, like, we were very easily led, or I certainly was as a songwriter, and dependent on what we were into collectively, that's what our next song would sound like. And perhaps that's true of a lot of bands, but it got to a point where I didn't feel like it was us anymore. As in, not, I didn't feel like we were being particularly honest with ourselves anymore. And perhaps I'm just going to move some of these tracks around because it makes more sense to talk about Meet Me in St. Louis next. Because so like I was listening to Chairmaid, and just reminiscing. I've been listening to Bronze Age, you know, I've been listening to a lot of my own music recently, and just thinking about, you know, the origins of the songs and things like that. And when we did Chairmaid, I felt really comfortable with that, and felt like it was a great way to it was the last song on the single, so that was kind of the bookmark of whatever we defined ourselves as up to that point, you know. So the album that we did was, we'd been writing songs for a long time, and it was like a collection of all of the songs that the best songs that we had at that point over our 5-year career, or whatever, however long we'd been together at that point. And our tastes and our styles were changing, and I felt like Chairmaid was like the culmination of all the things that we'd learned about songwriting, about lyrics, about writing hooks, about structuring songs, and we'd kind of got it. We did that song, and we recorded it and toured it, and I think we were together for about another 6 months or so, probably a bit more than that, but we were split up by the following summer. And the music that we were writing in that interim period, we wrote probably about 3 or 4 songs before we split up that never got finished or released. And then that's why it kind of felt right to rather than carry on PRE without Spencer when he left. It just felt right to kind of, let's just call PRE a day and we'll carry on as songwriters. And we went on to do Bronze Age. So I feel like that was the... Chairmaid is essentially a precursor to Bronze Age in that respect. It sounds very different to everything that we were doing in PRE, and it was a sign of things to come. So I was listening to that, and then because I was just searching for that song, Spotify just kept playing, and then they played the next 2 songs, which were All We Need Is a Little Energon and A Lot of Luck, Meet Me in St. Louis. So Meet Me in St. Louis, for anyone that has been listening to the podcast, Tobias Hayes, the guy from Laundromat, used to sing, and once upon a time he was the bass player for Meet Me in St. Louis. But yeah, he was the singer. We met those guys relatively in their infancy, so it was before their EP came out, and then they released that album, and then they split up not long after the album came out. I feel it's incredibly complex, incredibly well written in terms of the musicianships, and it's just it's a product of this math rock genre that we were involved in, and I think this is where I feel like we were getting trapped. And I feel, and I don't speak for Meet Me in St. Louis, but I feel like they painted themselves into a corner a little bit, because it was no longer about, and I don't mean this for Meet Me in St. Louis because obviously I wasn't in that band, I don't write music for them, but it felt like they were just getting complicated for complicated's sake. Now I could be massively wrong, but I felt that's where PRE were going. In order to write a good song, it had to be technically challenging. And when you get to that point where it's just it's no longer about the craft, it's just about making it as technically complex as you can, then you're not really writing songs anymore. You're not really writing music. You're writing technically challenging music. Now there's a whole wealth of people that will appreciate and find great value and adore that. Wasn't for me, and I just felt like we were in PRE, we were painting ourselves into a corner. And what really kind of stuck out for Meet Me in St. Louis and why I feel like this, they had a track on their original EP called I Am Champagne, You Are Shit. Phenomenal song, and it was like the first song on their first EP, so it was my first introduction to them, and I've got some great memories of them playing that, listening to that. It's a soundtrack to a specific point in my life. For the album, they rewrote it and made it more complicated. So I get it in a sense that it had to sit amongst other songs on the album, so they didn't want it to stick out. But they could have just left it as it was. It was a great song. If they wanted more complicated songs, have other complicated songs. But they literally just took one of their great songs and made it more complicated. Like, they added parts to it. They added sections that I personally didn't feel added any sonic benefit, other than we can make this song really complicated and show our technical prowess. And it was around that time that I just started questioning. Like, I heard it in what they were doing, and I personally didn't agree with it, and I found myself doing it in our band public relations exercise. Right, how are we going to compete with these guys technically? And it was just like, I don't want to be in that game. I want to write music that evokes pictures in people's minds, emotions for people. I want them to think and feel things when they hear our music, not scratch their chin and rate it out of 10 in terms of its complexity. I feel like I'm going round in a strange circle now. I'm a huge fan of Meet Me in St. Louis, and I don't mean to sound like I'm ragging on them. I'm not. Well, perhaps I am, but that's just my take on things. It's a phenomenal album, produced by, what was the guy's name? Alex Newport, who they got this. Who produced like the Mars Volta, and pretty sure he did At the Drive-In stuff as well. And it's this song in particular. I've just listening to it in these headphones. It's a beast. But it's dense, so people that may be new to that track, buckle up, because it's intense. So after that track came Oh Hello Ghost by Rolo Tomasi, and I haven't heard that song in ages. Again, like, for anybody that's unfamiliar with Rolo Tomasi, Hysterics is a great album. They were around at the same time as, well, I think they're still going, but this lineup, I think there are a few guys that were in this lineup of the band that left or were booted out or something, and they split off and did a band called Bodyhound. Again, like, I might have to go find them, because they were incredible. We played a show with them in one of my other bands, and they were Bodyhound, fantastic. They reminded me like of Yes in a very math rocky kind of way. But Oh Hello Ghost, I haven't heard that song for a long time, and there's just something about the guitar playing, how heavy it is. The girl singing is ferocious. I saw them live one time. They were supporting Fall of Troy at the Rescue Rooms, and oh god, they were just phenomenal. The singer has so much character and so much I want to say range, but I don't mean vocal range. I mean just different styles of singing. Her screaming is intense, but she also has a very nice singing voice as well. And she just had all of this kind of stage presence. She's fantastic. Great song. Check it out. Again, very intense if you're not used to that kind of thing. So then I'm back to the Guru. I've been listening to this album. I want to say it's Chew. I've been listening to that a lot this week. Recommendation from James again. This track in particular is really cool. Very easygoing. It's just a lot of fun, this track. And I've just... oh god, email just come up. Sorry guys. And I've just noticed I don't have an artist of the week. I wouldn't be able to pick one, and so I'm not going to. So that's just one of these things. I don't have an artist of the week this week. Car Seat Headrest are a band that I want to know more about. I don't really know much about them at all. other than a guy that I work with, Chris Reed, he's got a very eclectic music taste. I know he speaks highly of car seat headrests. They're not niche, they are huge. You know, some of these bands that I listen to are niche and not many people listen to them, and they're kind of hidden treasures. I've never really heard much about car seat headrest, and they are huge. So I've missed out on them. This track, Can't Calm Me Down, came on a playlist. I think it was called Missed Hits or something like that. It's one of these playlists that Spotify put together for you. Came on, really liked it, checked who it was, and it was Car Seat Headrest. I was like, right, cool, I'm gonna go check them out. So I've been listening to Teens of Denial a lot today. I've had it on in the car and walking the dogs again, and I really enjoyed this track. Joe gets kicked out of school for using drugs with friends, but says this is, I don't know what the end of that song is, the end of that title is. I think he says this is fine. Really enjoyed that track too, but I think I'm going to pursue them a little bit more. I get it. I get why I listened to these guys, and there was something about them that reminded me of the Libertines. Not in terms, usually when I say things like, oh, they remind me of such and such, it's not usually when they remind me of somebody, it's not because they sound like somebody else, but they make me feel certain things. With the Libertines were never really my bag, never really got into the Libertines, but I completely respect why people did. There was something very genuine about them, like, you know that they weren't playing around. They were doing what they meant. They meant what they did, all that kind of stuff. I get that kind of vibe with Car Seat Headrest. I get that this isn't a persona that they're putting on. This is who they are. They're the real deal. That's just the, like my brief my brief introduction with them. Sorry, I'd say it's quite late. It's not even that late. I'm just quite tired, I guess. My brief introduction to them, or my, you know, I've only listened to like an album of theirs, and that's my initial vibe that I'm getting. And that is the end of this week's playlist. I'm getting a little bit slack in terms of I haven't done an artist of the week. I haven't reviewed anything for a while. Forgive me. It's purely because I couldn't tell you why. There's a lot going on personally at the moment in terms of getting ready for the house move. A few things happening at home. I haven't got as much headspace or time to... You don't need to hear me moaning. I'm not moaning. I love my life, and I'm enjoying doing this podcast still. So hopefully you guys enjoy this playlist, and I'm going to start making advances on my friends for people that want to talk about specific albums. And also, I'm just going to get some friends on just to talk about music in general. So, if you know me, if we are friends, expect a message in the coming weeks, I guess, because I'm going to want to talk to you about music. And on that note, let me give you guys a reminder of all the things that you can, interact with me on. So you can search for the Wednesday Wang playlist on Spotify, and you can also find the Wing Magma podcast on Spotify. If you do listen to the playlist, give it a like, follow, let me know that you're interested, let me know that you tune in. You can also find me on TikTok. Not doing a great deal on TikTok at the moment. I should probably put a bit more effort in that. Most of my efforts are on YouTube at Wing Magma and Instagram at Wing Magma. Again, spread the word, guys. Help me out. I'm hoping to get a bit of momentum behind this. And so if you are watching on YouTube, just give me a like, validate me. And if you're watching anything or interacting with anything on Instagram, make me feel better about myself by giving me a like and a subscribe and comment, interact, get involved. Thank you very much for being involved in this podcast. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I shall see you soon. Take care.